So, this week in business and politics, there have been a number of very interesting events. Generally, it is quite easy to mock the GOP as a collection of grifters and dangerous extremist clowns, but this week we were treated to real expertise from none other than Tommy Tuberville, the third senator from Florida, who also moonlights as a senator from Alabama. Near the end of November, he decried the state of the U.S. military as the weakest he has seen in his lifetime. He is speaking as a true expert because he is the single reason the promotion of hundreds of officers have been blocked since February of this year. If the sudden onset of competence in the GOP is a cause for alarm, don't worry, Ted Cruz will maintain the standards of a clown show, as noted from the San Antonio Express. In business news, and still headlining clownish and frightening personalities, Elon Musk continues to demonstrate his unique leadership skills at X, a company unfortunately still cruelly dead-named as Twitter, as he expressed himself in the most memorable and imaginative way to what had been the platform's major advertisers. It looks as though he has decided he doesn't want major advertiser money and has decided instead to focus on small and medium businesses for future revenue. But who are we to say, as the great unwashed? Undoubtedly, the techno genius has identified an unmet need. That is, that small and medium businesses would prefer their brands to be associated with Nazi content and hate groups. We will soon find out how well Musk's eccentric but brilliant marketing talents work in this area. After all, people used to complain about Steve Jobs having a reality distortion field, yet he was very, if not insanely, successful. And by all accounts, the aura surrounding Musk is unique. I'll give him that. If somehow you still live comfortably on Twitter, avoiding the hostility now rampant there, I do ask you to consider that X may simply implode someday soon, and that the network of people you interact with won't be available that way anymore. It takes time to build those connections elsewhere, and it is a very good time to start working on an alternative if you have not. Unless you missed out on the news, journalists, academia, government officials, and services and news publications have been abandoning Twitter and have relocated to alternatives like Mastodon or Threads. News is beginning to break first on these platforms now. As an example of this, the New York Times only recently published news about Israel's intelligence failures on October 7th, whereas on Mastodon it's been known for several weeks. If you want to check on emerging topics, basically X is not the place anymore. And speaking of other car crashes, Musk's Cybertruck looks to be a complete dud, if not perfect hearse for anyone enthusiastic / dumb enough to buy this vehicle and crash it. The Cybertruck sports a number of innovations, such as the complete lack of crumple zones most cars have in order to spare the lives of both passengers and driver. The cost savings go far beyond a lack of crumple zones, though. The solid construction of the vehicle's chassis will likely retain all of the remains of said passengers and driver. So, if funeral services are required, it can double as a coffin, which would be quite the cost savings there. The evolution of human safety has not been restricted to Tesla and Musk, though. The general population could be forgiven for having the impression that the industry itself has it in for pedestrians and especially children. And to be fair, I suppose it's a competition of sorts. If you can just scare pedestrians into driving or purge them from the gene pool, eventually cars can dominate every aspect of life. Maybe we can chalk it up to long-termism from our billionaire overlords. They have the best interests of the human race in mind, so we should put all our faith in them. And ignore the naysayers that point out that the latest SUVs and pickup trucks provide lower visibility to their operators than for soldiers in combat tanks. Everyone knows that in a civilian environment, there is no need for a low profile, as there is no enemy fire to avoid. Well, usually, for those of us that live in the US, you never know. Besides, in the future of self-driving cars, what's the point of having visibility? We'll be spending our time enjoying entertainment or reading company email as we are being whisked to work. What could possibly go wrong? And if that data sharing nightmare wasn't bad enough, we have a larger decay in both personal privacy, security, and also attacks on the concept of personal property. We should worry a little bit about the pressure to succeed being placed on large language models. Apparently, they're having mental breakdowns and saying some really extraordinary things and making some rather extraordinary decisions about people's access to health care. Maybe we can get somebody like Bezos or Gates to pitch in $50 a month and get these large language models an account at BetterHelp. Google's aggressive attempts to end ad blocking is a true security threat for most users. Ads are a chronic source of phishing and other attacks on people's identity and information. We can kiss goodbye Google's old motto of "don't be evil" and consign it to the trash can of history. That's for sure. As for personal property, you know that the very wealthiest have decided that what we really want is a ownerless society, and they are aggressively pursuing that direction. If you have purchased content on Sony's PlayStation Network, be advised you are losing access to the content you have bought because they are severing their ties with certain content creators. Sony isn't the only platform that has undergone a change of relationship with content providers, but in principle, this is an example of the loss of personal property rights. And yet one more aspect of the great singularity. The major platforms are not exclusively focusing on stripping property rights from consumers. They've also gone after small-time creators, namely in the music industry. Spotify and Bandcamp, which are two things I have completely ignored, especially after iTunes stopped being a library of tracks that I purchased and turned itself into a streaming services. But anyway, I digress. Technology platforms are becoming useless for the promise they had made of themselves to individuals as consumers and as creatives. But all is not lost. There are alternatives. And you're going to find me advocating the not-for-profit, independently owned, federated, and cooperative flavor of alternatives for the simple reason that no one person owns it, and no one person or company can pull a rug out from under you. The internet really has become a fairly precarious place, and it's only becoming more so. I hope that everyone is a little bit thoughtful about the choices they make, of where they commit their time and effort, because Ultimately, the internet's value is in the network of people, and where the people decide to go and the options they choose or avoid will determine our fate. Choose wisely, my friends.